facing political persecution or humanitarian crises. All people should receive fair treatment under the law. As long ago as 2008, the League stated that while policy reforms remain unachieved, the League does not support deporting immigrants who have no history of major or violent criminal activity. We support provisions for individuals living here without legal permission to obtain legal status. We support federal immigration laws that provide efficient, expeditious systems for immigrants to enter the United States. The League believes that a path to citizenship or provisions for unauthorized immigrants already living in the U.S. to earn legal status will strengthen our nation. We support due process for all persons, including the right to a fair hearing, right to counsel, right of appeal, and the right to humane treatment. Humane as marked by compassion, sympathy, or consideration. In the past weeks in our community, this right has been violated. Just a personal note, I was out of town last week, but I was horrified by the text I was receiving. In protest of the Supreme Court decision allowing the administration to deport immigrants to countries other than their own, the League CEO, Selena Stewart, wrote, "This shameful and dangerous decision is a direct attack on the right to due process. It puts every American resident and citizen at risk and is a disgrace to the principles that this country claims to stand for. As a pro-democracy organization, we remain steadfast in our demand that all people are treated with humanity, fairness, and receive due legal process."
After Steve, it's Yasima Yesenia.
Steve Hagelin, son, resident of Waterloo, New York. Madam Supervisor, member of the board, thanks for the opportunity to express my personal opinion today. I'm not here on behalf of any organization with which I might be identified. Certainly when we all stood today, we pledged allegiance to the flag, which really stands for liberty and justice for all. It's not happening here. It's not happening nationally, and you have to stop it from happening here locally. We have masked men carrying off peaceful members of our community without warrants, without due process. This is not the American way. ICE officials claim to be targeting dangerous criminals, the worst of the worst, they say. But the public sees much abuse. Masked agents grabbing people who are not engaged in any obvious criminal activity. Mothers walking children to school, landscapers coming home from work, families in the hallways of courthouses even. We should not accept masked men making arrests in Southampton. Our proud police officers wear their names on their uniforms, displaying their badge numbers. This practice evolved because police officers work in the community and the community pays their salaries. And that openness develops trust in the police force. It's not what we have here with ICE people with masks. To the residents of Southampton, I say stand up. If you're witness to this illegal ICE activity, demand that they show a warrant for arrest. Film videos. I would urge our town board to seek every means to mandate our police department not to cooperate with ICE in arresting individuals without a warrant. Gentlemen referred to the parallels to World War II. In 1946, the German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller penned a very famous message called "First They Came." It indirectly condemned the complicity of German intellectuals and clergy in the Nazis' rise to power, and then the incremental purging of their chosen targets. He said, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew.
30 seconds.
Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Let's not let ICE isolate and target any segment of us. Let us stand up against a masked secret police force. Let's protect the dignity of peaceable immigrants, our welcome neighbors who live and work in our community. Thank you.
Waleska Ramirez.
Good afternoon, Madam Supervisor, board members, members of our community. I am here today.
Oh, could you please state your name for the record?
Yesenia Kachimbo, I'm a Sag Harbor resident. I'm here today because our community is under attack. ICE agents are raiding our neighborhoods, our workplaces, our courthouses. The people that are being targeted are not criminals. They are our neighbors, hardworking mothers and fathers who are raising their children alongside ours. They are children who have only known us our small town as their home. They are human beings human beings who came here to work, live, and to belong. Every fall we marvel at the birds when they migrate south. We call it nature's beauty. Yet when people move in search of safety and opportunity, we criminalize it. We celebrate migration when it's birds, but punish it when it's people. These raids are destroying trust. They make families afraid to report crimes, send their children to school, not to mention what it's doing to our mental health. Real law enforcement officers take an oath to serve and protect, to build safety through trust, not terror. ICE has broken that trust. When they act without accountability, when they ignore due process and dehumanize our neighbors, they erode the foundation of safety that real police work depends on. A testament of that is the lack of Latino presence in this room. We do not know who to trust. To echo the message of the speaker before me, our communities deserve safety, dignity, and humanity, not raids, not intimidation, and not racial profiling. It's time to hold ICE accountable and reclaim the true value of justice. I plead with the board, your message must be clear. There is no place for masked agents. There is no place for kidnapping in our community. One last note, and one we should take very seriously, to echo the poem that was just read. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us, and ignoring it would be a huge mistake.
Waleska Ramirez, and then Janet O'Brien.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Waleska Ramirez, better known to the community as Wally.
Louder!
Can't hear you.
Get closer to you.
Is this better?
Yes.
Hear me now? Okay, so I am Waleska Ramirez, but better known to the community as Wally Ramirez. I am also a community advocate for all of Eastern Long Island. And I'm here just to talk about what I am witnessing from the families that reach out to Ola and call us for help. As you're aware, there's been many community members detained. These community members are hardworking individuals who have lived and contributed to our and your community for years. Most of them all are not criminals. They are fathers, mothers, husbands, sons, daughters, brothers, friends, and they are literally being kidnapped by armed masked men. Families are being ripped apart. The community is terrified. They fear going to doctors' offices, food shopping, the laundromat to do laundry, to work, and to even send their kids to school. They're being targeted and taken because of how they look and the color of their skin, regardless of criminal history or having judicial warrants. There has been an increase of ICE activity, and it has become more violent. There is a lack of action, and there's something that needs to be done.
3 minutes.
I know that you mentioned earlier about writing a letter. It just doesn't seem that that's enough. We need your support. We need to see that you stand on our side, and our community needs to feel safe. Thank you.
After Janet, is Patty Schaefer.
Hi, hello. Unprepared words here. I'm surprised and I'm actually delighted to hear so many strong words in this room today. Words of strength for your community. But I'm surprised that there is not any other business owners like myself here today in defense of our Latino community. And do I draw our attention to how many businesses do depend on our amazing workers that have been members, for example, in my company for 25 years. And I, as an immigrant myself, would like to draw attention to that, to everybody, that if you even stand at a crossroads and look at the amount of trucks that are driven by our Latinas and Latinos, at the end of the day, that surely it's reflecting on our businesses. And our businesses is our community. It's everything. So as an immigrant employer, and as somebody who depends not only, of course, on immigrants, but as many of community members in Southampton, Janet O'Brien Caterers and Events, we're pretty well known, that we need to spotlight this. It's not just the wrongs that are happening, but also the rights and the work that people have brought to our tables. Okay, folks, thank you very much.
And after Patty Schaefer, it's Ella Engel Snell.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Moore and council members, and thank you for offering the opportunity to speak out on this issue. My name is Patty Schaefer Fahey, and I live in West Hampton Beach. I'm here to add my voice to those in the town of Southampton who are shocked and saddened by recent events targeting the most vulnerable members of our communities. I stand with Ola and Seba Mujer in the work they conduct every day to support the immigrant community. We need their organizations and we need their voices. Over the years, I've met dozens of immigrants and new Americans whose hard work and sacrifices have been an inspiration and whose contributions to the community are immeasurable. These are our fellow parents, students in our schools, parishioners in our places of worship, friends and neighbors. They contribute to, as Supervisor Moore said, the very fabric of our communities. It's reassuring to hear from Supervisor Moore that the town will stand up for these individuals and their families. And the crowd that just stood up this afternoon is truly inspiring. It's restored my faith that good people outnumber those with bad intentions. I really hope that can continue to be the case. I'd just like to add one point. I was gonna say that I haven't heard mentioned, but the speaker before me said it so eloquently. And that's to ask businesses and small business owners around town to please come forward and demand from our elected officials and decision makers that we implement comprehensive immigration reform and that we find reasonable paths to employment and to citizenship. If you're hiring immigrants and undocumented workers, or you're using subcontractors that are using these individuals for their labor and looking the other way, you have a civic and I'd argue moral obligation to help solve this issue. Our most vulnerable neighbors have no voice, and they need all of us, particularly their employers, their teachers, and their neighbors, to stand on the right side of history. Thank you.
After Ella is Tinker Topic.
Good morning. My name is Ella Engel Snow. I live in Sagaponack. I'm a farm worker, an after-school educator, and a social worker. And I'm here today, along with many others, to speak about the brutal ICE raids that have been terrorizing our communities. I want to thank those who have been clear about your support for all community members and those who have been clear about not being willing to comply. And you have my support. I really don't have anything new to say. There's been many great things that have been said, but I'm here anyway because it's important that you, the town board, hear how many of us, your constituents, are not only paying attention, but are calling on you. And that's really what I've heard, is that people are here asking you for more, calling on you as our elected leaders to show up. What we do in this moment matters. Oh, I'm sorry. At every level of, what we do in this moment matters at every level of government. It matters in every town, on every road, in front of every person's home or job. Every precious life, every relationship is an entire world, and we must act with this understanding. There is always a choice to stand up against injustice and cruelty, and that is exactly what we are seeing, blatant, massive cruelty. In these unprecedented times, we must be creative and work together to find new ways to support each other and to uphold what I hope and believe to be our shared value, that every life must be treated equally and with care. We must do what we can from where we are. And where we are in the town of Southampton, our neighbors, our friends and family are being terrorized. As you know, people are afraid to leave their home, afraid to send children to school, afraid to go grocery shopping, afraid to go to the doctor. Those of us who have the capacity to speak up and stand up must join together and stand in the way of this horror, just as we would hope people would do for us. I look forward to hearing from you about what more you are willing to do. And, just in response to the thing about the fire department, as many others have said, just because one may feel that they can't prevent something from happening does not mean that they can't stand up against it and speak out against it. And you all as a town board can come together and speak out against this and say, no, ICE is not welcome here. ICE is not welcome to plan and meet in our fire departments, our police departments, or any other place. Thank you.
Is Kristen Argio. Can you hear me? No.
That was my
Maybe
granddaughter.
tip it down a little.
Yeah, that was my granddaughter, who speaks from a different perspective than I do. And all I can say is I appreciate the board's commitment to being sure that ICE is not good. I see that. I hear you really don't want it, and you should be commended for that. But it seems to me that one of the things we could do, that you could do, is to see where it has worked. Everyone has talked about how we should stop ICE from doing illegal, immoral things. But why not find out and consult with those communities? And there are some. There's one in Connecticut, there's one in California that I've already researched that have successfully stopped ICE. And it obviously has to be elected officials. So how to put pressure on those people who are elected officials, and that would be your job. And I appreciate everything that you're doing. And thank you.
Do you have some reference to those matters?
I do.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that something you could leave a copy with the clerk or email to us?
I'll try to, yes. I mean, I will. Who should I leave it?
Clerk. And then she can distribute it to all of us. I'd be very interested to see what you found.
Because there are communities that have succeeded. Okay.
Thank you. So Kristen, after Kristen is John McCullough.
Christine, you mean?
I'm sorry, Christine.
Okay. Hi.
Christine. Argiro.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay. So my name's Christine Argiro. I'm a lifelong resident of Hampton Bays, a mother, a daughter of immigrants, and a proud member of this community. What occurred here last Wednesday was not law enforcement. It was racial terror. ICE parked at Hampton Bays High School were there not to protect, but to intimidate. One student I hold close to my heart said, "Can't they do something?" Speaking of everyone with a sense of morality. I'm worried about myself and my mom. Students had no idea what was unfolding outside while families across town were traumatized systematically. I thank the superintendent there and the administration for caring for our children. Even though my children don't go there, but they are our children. The same morning, ICE agents assaulted residents. A clinician contacted me, desperate to find lawyers for her childhood friend who had been detained. Another friend, a U.S. citizen, watched her cousin being escorted away in handcuffs on Facebook Live. At a local Dunkin' Donuts, frightened workers fled while customers laughed. The lack of education in this country is purposeful. Let's not fall prey to an agenda of illiteracy to keep constituents in the dark. Later, I was told of a U.S. citizen woman assaulted and then driven around for hours by ICE officers. And as I stand here, children, our greatest treasures, our little miracles, are being separated from their mothers across cities in the United States. This injustice defies every moral, and although I'm not religious, I imagine also defies every spiritual law. God only knows what fate such acts will lead to. We are breaking not only families, but the moral spine of our nation. What happened in Hampton Bays is not isolated, it is a foreshadowing of what is happening across this country. A slow normalization of cruelty. Across cities and towns, fear-based enforcement tactics are being used to divide communities, destabilize families, and instill collective trauma. This is not public safety. It is systematic dehumanization. And when racial profiling is permitted under the guise of legality, countless members of our society, citizens and non-citizens alike, will be violated of their rights. And I will skip here. On social media that night, I saw anti-immigrant racist and Islamophobic comments from former Hampton Bays classmates. These are individuals I grew up with. Many have been indoctrinated by decades of misinformation shaped by an environment that normalizes bigotry.
3 minutes.
So, I just want to close here, and I want to say it would be really nice, and I'm sorry to the firefighters that were offended, but it's not about them. It wasn't about them. It was about the people that were traumatized. They're in the middle of town. That's where the protest was, period. And they could have stood in solidarity. Who carry equipment, right? It's about our children and our families and our friends. So what I'm asking, if your hands are tied, then that's fine, but show up. Go to the school, go to the churches, show your faces and say, hey, I'm here, I'm with you. Rick, I don't know if you know me, but I graduated with Ricky,
Of course.
kindergarten through 12th grade. And like, you and I didn't really exchange any words, but it's not too late to make a stand.
So thank you all. Thanks so much for your time. It was great to see you. I appreciate everything you said. So, on the fire department end of it, they can make their statements and the signs across the street shouldn't bother them at all. But just like you, their kids saw the social media and the back and forth that you did. And it was horrific on both sides, and their kids had to read those same comments and go through that, and there was a lot of kids who were upset by that, and I know it's just a small part of the feelings that are going around here, but it did affect everybody. We come out and say that the fire department, was taking a part in this, and they absolutely were not. I will tell you from my end, because I've worked with the kids in the school for quite a few years. We were working on legislation to help cover some of the SNAP benefits that were missing for the kids who weren't getting food in school. I had checked in with Catherine Andrzejak, who is the head of the St. Rosalie's Food Pantry, and some of the things that she told me were disturbing. That, right after the ice aids, nobody came for food. The kids weren't going to the after-school programs at the library. that, you know, less kids were in school. You know, and that's all troubling to me. I made sure that, you know, some of the benefits that I can get my hands on went to the pantry and to do things like that. There's a lot of questions, and I'll comment after everything on what I think we can do, but I'm absolutely involved in the community, as we all should be. And don't stop at just coming here, you know, follow up with your food pantries, follow up with the school. I know Lars Clemenson will never let ICE into the building. You know, whether they can use the parking lot or not, I'm not sure what the legality is there. But absolutely, there's firewalls. And just to get back, you know, we can't blame the fire department. We have questions for the chief that he's answered over and over and over again. I wish we had prior notice. There's a lot of things I wish we had. but we
Yeah,
can
I'm
talk
not
about-
blaming them
Yeah.
at all. I just wanna make that very, very clear. And they are just a product of the fallout of just a much bigger issue.
Yeah.
You know what I
So-
mean?
I
That's
just want
it.
you to understand that, you know, we're listening to everybody today, but there are steps that we have taken. There probably is more to come. But right now, we're just listening.
If I may, before we continue on, I know we have one last person or two before we finish this discussion on ICE and immigration, but I really want to say a comment based on some of the things that have been brought up, the topics. Two things, I want to split this into two parts. First and foremost, I have had discussions with Minerva Perez and some of the advocates, and I understand the concerns. And I have had follow-up conversations with our police department. So let me just first and foremost say something about our police department. A lot of the men and women who serve our police department are trying everything they can to do things in an ethical and moral way. I do understand that they feel as if that they cannot participate in the fullest extent of understanding what's happening, and that's very frustrating for them. And I want to commend the men and women of our police department. Our police department, as referenced before, post George Floyd, has probably become one of the most progressive police departments in the nation. But I want to say one other thing about the issue going on with ICE. Hearing from the superintendents of some of our local schools and hearing that they're seeing a decrease, hearing that they are seeing a decrease in the number of children coming into school in the attendance records is extraordinarily concerning to me. And in the name of responsible government and transparency, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to find out why they are taking the people they are taking and who they are taking. Because as far as I understand it, we don't know. And that is a problem in terms of basic transparency in local governance. And so if we are going to be sending a letter, that letter should be specifically asking those questions. We should be provided with that basic level of information, period.
I just want to follow up on what you said, and that is, you know, I know that, you know, from a community standpoint, us asking questions doesn't seem like enough. But to get answers to a lot of these questions that you yourselves are asking will help us inform the community on what's going on going forward. We do have many conversations with our local superintendents of our school districts that are seeing this affect our children. And getting answers to questions is where we start. Because we can't do anything without the answers to these questions that we all want answers to. And that being said, you know, I'm glad that Mr. Anthony brought up what Chief Kieran had said when we brought him on as the chief of Southampton Town Police Department. Our police department, our local police department has not changed. They are the same police department that has given awards by OLA, that is out there in the community, going to community events. You can 1,000% call them without fear. And I think that is a message that we need to get out there to the community, because, you know, people have enough fear going on that if there's something going on in their lives, if there's a woman being battered, if there's a child being abused, we need them to be able to reach out to our local law enforcement. That cannot stop, and we really need to drive home that fact that our local police department is here for you. They are the same police force that has been here for you, and they will be here for you in the future, and you need to feel safe to call them, so.
Good point. Okay, our last speaker, I believe, on this topic in room is John McCullough.
Good afternoon. John McAuliffe. I live in Riverhead, but I grew up in Noyak. I have 4 generations of history in Southampton, Palmers and McAuliffes. So I welcome an opportunity to share my perspective. It's a perspective based on also having served in the Peace Corps in Peru, and that's where my Latin America perspective comes from. We're a country of immigrants, right? Just looking who's on the board and in this audience, my Irish family came just before the famine, at the famine, after the famine in the late 19th century. There was no such thing as an illegal immigrant or an undocumented immigrant. You got off the boat and the only question was whether you had tuberculosis or some other contaminating disease, and then you could come into the United States and you could ultimately become a citizen. And I think that's what we need to be looking at right now. I don't believe in open borders, but I also believe in realism and understanding who it is that makes our country function today. The jobs that are done by people in Riverhead or in Southampton, all over the country, are often done by people who don't have a piece of paper that gives them the right to do those jobs. I think that we need to address that problem, but we also need to understand why they came here and the cost that brought them here. People traveled at great risk to themselves and their children. They paid $10,000 to $15,000 to be able to come to the US. In some ways, the hardship was worse than even my ancestors faced coming from Ireland. The attitudes, I mean, this has been a very positive meeting in what people have said, but all you have to do is go to next door to see what popular attitudes about immigrants are. And it reminds one of the attitudes about the Irish and the Italians and the Poles and the Eastern Europeans in the 19th and 20th century.
30 seconds.
The last thing that I would say is that I think you are far ahead of where my own town board is in Riverhead, and having this session is, I hope, will serve as an inspiration to Riverhead. But I think that all of the town boards need to put themselves publicly in a position of opposing ICE, and I think also calling for legal status, some green card status for people who are here. Thank you very much.